Good morning, students and friends. Welcome to our webinar today. The topic of today's webinar is the essence of strategic management of technology innovation. Please note that innovation is difficult for well-established companies. By and large, they are better executors than innovators. And most succeed less through game-changing creativity than by optimizing their existing businesses. So let us understand what strategic innovation is first. So we are now looking on various aspects of innovation. So when we are talking about strategic innovation, is an organization process of reinventing or redesigning its corporate strategy to drive business growth, generate value for the company and its customers, and create a competitive advantage. This type of innovation is essential for organizations to adapt to the speed of technological change. A product innovation strategy is about creating winning products, which means products that are in an attractive market, target a profitable customer segment, address the right unmet needs, and help customers get a job done better than competition solutions. So today we are going to cover the basic concept of importance of innovations, sources of innovations, type and pattern of innovations, standard battles, modality, and platform competition, including timing of entry, which is important as well, defining the organization's strategic direction, innovation from theory to academic research findings, and reason for success in innovations, and also reason for failure, because this is equally important, that why some companies fail. And then we will see some case study followed with Q&A. That is our plan today for our session. So before we go too deep into the topic, let's understand first the advantage of innovation. Actually, innovation helps companies to improve productivity, reduce costs, increase competitiveness, improve brand recognition and value, help in creating new partnerships and relationships, increase turnover and improved profitability. So now the question comes, why it is so hard to build and maintain the capacity to innovate? The reason is not simply a failure to execute, but a failure to articulate an innovation strategy that aligns innovation efforts with the overall business strategy. So without such a strategy, companies will have a hard time weighing the trade-offs of various practices, such as crowdfunding, crowdsourcing, customer co-creation, and so many end up with grab bag of approaches. They will have trouble designing a coherent innovation system that fits their corporate and competitive needs over time, and may be tempted to ape someone else's system. And they will find it difficult to align different parts of the organization with shared priorities. As we all heard about Corning in France, a leading glass and material science company, they have found that an innovation strategy must address how innovation will create value for potential customers, how the company will capture a share of that value, and what type of innovation to pursue. That is equally important. So critics tend to discount routine innovation that leverages a company's existing technical capabilities and business models and extol disruptive innovation. But this is simplistic view. A company's unique competitive circumstances should dictate the innovation portfolio itself. So let us understand the importance of technological innovation. In many industries, technological innovation is now the single most important driver of competitive success. And because of the pace of innovation has increased, many firms now rely on product developed within prior 5 years for a large portion of their sales and profits. So this period is reduced to 3 years for firms in fast-paced industry such as computer, software, and telecommunication. So innovation is also a very powerful driver of increased effectiveness and efficiency in producing goods and bringing them to the market. So the firms that do not constantly innovate to make their development, production, and distribution processes more effective and efficient are likely to fall behind their competitors. So the globalization of market has played a significant role in increasing the importance of innovation as a competitive strategy by increasing competitive pressure. So let us go to see further. Furthermore, advances in information technology have also played a role in driving up the pace of innovation. These technologies also help firms to develop and produce more product variants, enabling them to focus their competitors. For example, Toyota produced dozens of different passenger vehicles line, each with several different models. Samsung introduced 43 unique smartphones in 2021 alone. Hence, the adoption of these technologies has triggered industry-wide shift to shorten development cycles and more rapid new product introduction. And furthermore, the proportion of funds for technological innovation provided by firms relative to the government funding has been increasing, but government do play a significant role in the innovation process. So it's quite interesting if we see that this technological innovation increases the range of goods and services available to a society as well. And the efficiency of providing them, for example, innovation has increased the development of new medical treatment and the efficiency of food production. The solo residual is the GDP growth represented by technological change. Average world GDP per capita has fallen steadily since 1971 and cannot be attributed solely to the growth of labor and capital inputs. The story is not all positive. However, sometimes technological innovation results in negative externalities as well, such as pollution, and medical technologies can have anticipated consequences. So go to the next part of our discussion. So successful innovators have clearly defined innovation strategies and management processes that result in a greater percentage of successful products and shorter development life cycles. Now the question is, how long does new product development take? Cycle time varies with the innovativeness of the project. Incremental improvements take less time than next generation improvements, while new to the world product or technologies take the longest. Here, the innovative funnel depicts the new product development process as beginning with many new product ideas going in the wide end and ending with very few projects making it through the development process. That is the bottom line of the funnel. So what we understand is that it takes longer for every innovation, and not every innovation gets successful. Please note the sources from which innovation arises include the role of individuals, organizations, government institutions, network industries, and this type of innovations and the factor which determines whether industries experience pressure to select a dominant design, what drives which technologies dominate others, and last but not the least, timing of entry and how firm can identify and manage their entry options in order to achieve technological innovation. So it's quite interesting if you see how we're going to characterize and characteristics of successful innovating companies. Let us understand first the characteristics. In this digital age, the pace of change has gone into hyperspeed. So many companies must organize their strategic, creative, execution, and organizational factors right to innovate successfully. They need to firstly aspire to create a far-reaching vision that can be compelling catalyst, provided it's realistic enough to stimulate action today. Second, choose fresh creative insights, which are invaluable. But at the same time, no one knows exactly where valuable innovation will emerge, and searching everywhere is impractical. Hence, companies must create some boundaries, conditions for the opportunity spaces they want to explore. Then comes third, the discover. Innovation also requires actionable and differentiated insight, the kind that excite customers and bring new categories and markets into being. A company must discover methodically, and systematically scrutinize three areas: a valuable problem to solve, a technology that enables a solution, and business model that generates money from it. So all this methodically, if you have to look, it will happen. So fourth, evolve. Hence, business model innovation, which could change the economics of the value chain, diversify profit streams, and or modify delivery models. This should be evolving, which have been a vital part of the strong innovation portfolio. Fifth, accelerate. Too often, companies simply get in the way of their own attempts to innovate. A surprising number of impressive innovation from companies were actually the fruits of their mavericks who succeeded in bypassing their early approval processes. Clearly, there is a balance to be maintained. Bureaucracy must be held in check, yet the rush to market should not be undermined. The cross-functional collaboration, continuous learning cycles, and clear decisions pathways that help to enable innovation. Sixth, scale. Scaling of resources and capabilities must be marshaled to make sure a new product or services can be delivered quickly at the desired volume and quality. So manufacturing facilities, suppliers, distributors, and others must be prepared to execute a rapid and full rollout. Seventh, extend. In the space of only a few years, companies in nearly every sector have conceded that innovation requires external collaborators. Flows of talent and knowledge increasingly transcend companies and geographic boundaries. Successful innovators achieve significant multiple for every dollar invested in innovation by assessing the skills and talent of others. In this way, they speed up innovation and uncover new ways to create value for their customers and ecosystem partners. Last but not the least, mobilize. Let us understand, how do leading companies stimulate, encourage, support, and reward innovative behavior and thinking among the right groups of people? The answer is, the best companies find ways to embed innovation into the fiber of their culture from the core of periphery. Smart collaborations with external partners, though, goes beyond merely sourcing new ideas and insights. It can involve sharing costs and finding faster routes to the market. Successful innovating companies also do a systematic collection of all impulses that could lead to innovation, nurture the creativity of their employees, develop abilities, expertise to evaluate the possibilities of innovative ideas, and create good teamwork and project management skills. That's very important. Successful companies innovate, also cooperate with external experts like universities, research laboratories, research workshops, and they should develop a risk-taking appetite. Human resource management focus on employees' motivation, training, and continuous upgrading of their employees' education. Last but not the least, the ability to finance the innovative activities. Huawei, Alibaba, Zhongxin in China is the best examples. I'm sure you know that Huawei have its own universities in Shenzhen, same Zhongxin. Same Alibaba has a business school in Hangzhou Normal University, Xifan Dashi. They are trying to train, educate, upgrade their employees and boost them with innovative ideas to come up something unique for the development of their companies. There are many definitions of innovation, but I believe that innovation is considered performed if it is introduced to the market, product innovation, or implemented into production process, which we say process innovation. Innovation includes many research, technological, organizational, financial, and commercial activities. So this is how we define. And secondly, R&D represents only one of these activities and take place during various stages of the innovation process. It can play not only the role of original source of the innovation ideas, but also the role of problem-solving framework, which can be turned at any stage of the implementation. Many definitions come up, but this is something which we need to understand the core. Now let us understand the famous Oslo Manual. This Oslo Manual provides guidelines for collecting and interpreting data on innovation. It seeks to facilitate international comparability and provide a platform for research and experimentation on innovative measurement. So as per Oslo Manual, an innovation is the implementation of a new or significantly improved product, goods or services, or process, a new marketing method, or a new organizational method in business practices, workplace organization, or external relations. So we have to understand very clearly how the innovation takes place in organizations in this world at the moment. Having said so, Technological innovation is also based on specific technology, inventions, and discoveries, including social innovations, like in the educational system, social system, healthcare, e-government, and many things which is happening around us on a daily basis. Furthermore, more innovation could be classified into system innovation and component innovation in order to achieve an incremental position to improve on what the company is currently doing or new to the company, and also radical new to the whole world. And there are several examples like what you see on this slide. New series of cars, planes, computers, TV, new generation MP3 download, steam engine, biotechnology, nanotechnology, AI, VR, all this ICT development, improvement of components, new component for existing system. Every day, things are coming up. So we have to understand how and which way we should classify our innovation process. So innovation process should be focused on R&D, research and development, production, and marketing. Innovation is an opportunity for something new, change, as customers like change. Every customer likes change. So innovators view change as an opportunity and not a threat. So this is what we need to keep in our mind. The company needs to use its resources in the best possible and effective way by focusing on its operational output, top quality products, and perfect knowledge of its customer base. Companies should know their customers. It is recommended that the company should solve their problems in a timely manner and correct way to be efficient, effective in this competitive world. Companies should manage the innovation as a project to go ahead of the competition and market needs, should have risk mitigating strategies and analyze risk associated with it carefully and use various models, scenarios, and various simulations on various digital technology. And lastly, should study the white papers, reports, informations of successful and unsuccessful innovation projects and analyze reason why success, why failure, to be more prudent and smart and do not repeat the mistakes made by others and learn to follow the success steps. And that's what we should do. Having said so, what companies need to do is start analyzing and studying and look for opportunities and do brainstorming and go among people, ask questions and listen to the suggestions, their need, their pain points, since the innovations are focused on specific need and not the final product. All effective innovation starts on a small scale and generally lead to a winning a lead position before the competition grab it. So timing is very important and how quickly you act. Now let you tell the companies should avoid too many ambitions and should not try to do everything at once, but instead make strategies and focus on the core of the problem to find solutions in a short time and for today and not for tomorrow, because time is running fast. Companies should remember 3 conditions of innovation. First, innovation means working hard and with full concentration on a mission thoroughly with strict timelines. Second, Companies should build on the innovation based on their core competencies and strength and their USP, unique selling point they have. Third, innovation should be market focused, and companies should be able to create market pull. That is the success behind any innovation. So let us talk about the sources of innovation. There are 10 types of innovations. One, focus on profit model, how you make money. Second, focuses on network, connections with others to create value. Another, structure, alignment of your talent and assets. Then process, signature of superior methods for doing your work. Then comes product performance, distinguishing features and functionalities. Then comes your product performance, distinguished features and personalities and functionalities. Then when you talk about product system, it's complementary products and services. Then comes your service, support and enhancement that surrounds your offerings. Channel, how you offering are delivered to customers and users. Then comes brand, representation of your offering and business. And last, customer engagement, distinctive reaction you foster and how you engage your customer. In the late 2017, as usual, all these smart entrepreneurs like Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, Jack Ma, Mayun, and others began funding efforts to grow clean meat. The cell-based meat market is projected to be worth $94.5 billion by 2030. And this plant-based meat could exceed $23 billion by 2024. Now, all the entrepreneurs who are known for their future visions are focusing on innovation in areas that will make them pioneers in that field. Starting from innovation in the health sector, eyeing on the COVID and other future viruses, pharmaceutical companies are working in new inventions. Artificial intelligence, AR, VR, innovation in e-commerce, digital world, and so on. So this Dutch scientist, Mark Post, unveiled the first cultivated meat burger on live television in 2013. And 2 years later, the first 4 cultivated meat companies were founded by global conglomerates. The introduction of lab-grown meat offers consumers another way to get the taste, texture, and nutrition. The introduction of lab-grown meat offers consumers another way they want from traditional meat without the environmental impact or animal cruelty. And new studies show cultivated meat can have massive environmental benefits and cost competitive by 2030, which is in line with the Paris Climate Change Agreement and for global good and for the mankind. So everyone is trying to catch opportunities. Innovation can arise from many different sources, including individual, firm, universities, government laboratories, and incubators, including private non-profit organizations. So firms are well suited to innovation activities because they're highly motivated by the need of remain competitive. And because having the management system needed to organize their resources to achieve an organizational objective. And even more important, sources of information and innovation is the network that link innovators together. This network leverages a broader range of knowledge and resources that an individual entity could. Creativity, very important. when we are talking innovation. Creativity is defined actually as the ability to produce work that is useful and novel, different and surprising when compared to prior work. So the most creative works are novel at the individual producer level, the local audience level, and the broader societal level. So when a product is novel to its creator, but known to everyone else, it is referred to as reinvention. Individual creativity is a function of intellectual abilities, knowledge, personality, motivation, and environment. Researchers have argued that most important capability is the ability to look at problems in unconventional ways. This is something which we have to understand. Intellectual abilities include intelligence, memory, and ability to look in the problem in unconventional ways, evaluate alternatives, articulate them to others. Some people are also able to engage in primary process thinking and to rapidly generate many association or follow path of association and more steps. So too much knowledge can result in an inability to think beyond the existing logic and paradigm of a field, while too little knowledge can lead to trivial contribution. So the most creative individuals can distinguish important problems from unimportant ones, self-efficacies, tolerance for ambiguity, and a willingness to overcome obstacles and take a reasonable risk are the personality traits most important for creativity. Intrinsic motivation has also been shown to be very important for a creativity, and extrinsic motivators, example, monetary rewards, award, can sometimes also undermine creativity. So further, when we are talking about organizational creativity, it is actually, we are talking about a function of the creativity of the individuals within the organizations and a variety of social processes and contextual factors that shape the way those individuals interact and behave. The creativity of individuals can be amplified or thwarted by an organizational structure, routine, and incentive. Common methods of tapping employee creativity includes the suggestion box, idea management system, followed by Google, Honda, Bank One, and many others. So idea collection systems such as suggestion box or idea management systems are only a first step. Managers can be trained to signal through verbal and non-verbal cues that each employee thinking and autonomy are respected. Employees can also be trained to use creativity tools such as using analogies or developing alternative scenarios. So there are many ways that creativity can be done in the organization. Let us see an example, a case study of Google. Google is quite interesting. They inspire innovation and creativity in their company in a very special way. 20% of the time, engineers are encouraged to work on their own projects, which is assigned by the company to them or they have chosen. On achieving milestones, they are rewarded and recognized. They have several awards in the system of Google, like Google Founder Award, AdSense Idea Contest, and regular innovation review. And that's what makes Google what they are today, the world engine of information. We should not forget that innovation occurs when new ideas are implemented into some useful form. Example, a new product or a process. The inventors has been the focus of many studies. And there is a significant disagreement over whether innovators are born or made. It is also important to note that qualities that make an individual inventive do not necessarily make that individual entrepreneurial. Inventors are often portrayed as eccentric, doggedly persistent scientists. One 10-year study of inventors showed that the most successful inventors are those who have mastered the basic tools and operation in the field in which they invent, but have not specialized solely in that field. They are curious and more interested in problems than solutions. Questions the assumptions made in previous work in the field. Often have the sense that all knowledge is unified. They seek global solutions rather than local solutions and will be generalistic by nature. For example, the Indian software industry. There have been so many examples actually. So now let us check out Elon Musk or Steve Jobs or Jack Ma. What breakthrough innovators have in common, what they share in common. All these guys, they understand and understood the following. First, they felt a sense of separateness and tended to challenge rules. They had intense faith in their ability to achieve their objectives. They were keenly idealistic. They began with the modest means and worked very hard for their success. They were often self-taught. Jack Ma, he believed on internet future. When he started from a tea house, then to his drawing room from his home, and when everybody refused and told him it's a crazy idea, there's no revenue model, you cannot do it. But he knew that this has a future, it has a potential. As an English teacher, he started a very humble beginning. And today we all see why he's successful, because he believed in his dream. He believed in himself. And he's self-taught. He knew that there is a huge demand on B2B and B2C business in future. And they're what he is today. So there's so many examples which we need to see on a day-to-day basis. So innovation is also done by users many times. For example, the laser sailboat developed by Olympic sailors. Indermal tissue adhesive based on superglue. Early snowboards were all developed by the users based on their needs in their life. Users are another important source of innovation. Users are keenly aware of their unmet needs and have the greatest motivation to find ways to meet those needs. Typically, how doctors started using superglue to repair skin in emergency situations. Hence, manufacturers typically create innovations to profit from their sales, but user innovators often initially create innovation purely for their own use. Firms are very important engine of innovation. Firms consider their own research and development spending to be their most important resource for innovation. Research can refer to both basic research and applied research. Basic research does not focus on specific immediate commercial application. Applied research is directed at a meeting a specific need or commercial objective. Development refers to activities that apply knowledge to produce useful devices. materials, or processes. A science push approach to research and development views the process as linear, moving from scientific discovery to the invention, to engineering, then manufacturing activities, and finally, marketing. This approach has been shown to have a little real-world applicability. The demand pull model of research and development argues that innovation is driven by the demand of potential users. Scholars have concluded that different phases of innovations are likely to be characterized by various levels of science push and demand pull. So we need to understand this while thinking about innovation in our daily life. So collaboration can occur in alliances, research consortium, licensing arrangement, contract research and development, including joint ventures and other arrangements. So the most frequent collaborations are between firms and their customers, suppliers, and local universities. Formally, firms may also collaborate with competitors and complementers, and the line between complementary and competitors can be blurred, making the relationship between firms very complex at times and difficult to navigate. But in some circumstances, these bitter rivals in one product category will collaborate in that product category or in the development of complementary products. For example, Microsoft competes against Rockstar Games in many video games categories, yet also licenses many Rockstar games to play on its Xbox. So the line between competitors and complementers can be tricky to manage. For example, Google bought Motorola Mobility in 2011. Many speculated that it would give Motorola handset preferential access to its Android operating system, prompting other handset market and makers such as Samsung and HTC to question their support of Google. So it keeps happening all around the world. External and internal sources of innovations are likely to be complements rather than substitutes. Research by the Federation of British Industries shows that firms conducting internal R&D were also the heaviest users of external collaborative networks. Presumably, doing in-house research and development helps to build the firm's absorptive capacity, the firm's ability to understand and make use of new innovations and new informations. So public research institutions such as universities, governments, laboratories, and incubators enable companies to develop innovations that they would have not developed otherwise. So universities encourage their faculty, professors, their research PhD students to engage in research that may lead useful innovations, but maintain sole discretion over the rights to commercialize the innovation. A rapid growth in technology transfer offices occurred after Congress of US passed Bayh-Dole Act in 1980s. But even today, a lot of revenues from university invention are still very small, and actually a lot of collaboration is happening between the university and the industry. Every university is developing science parks, they're developing various incubators, they're doing many competition within the university for students and researchers to come up with the innovative ideas. So that could be combined with the industries. So government-funded research is actively supported in many countries, but the ratio of R&D funding provided by industry and government varies significantly by country. So government research takes place in government laboratories, and through the funding of science park, fostering collaboration between national and local government institutions, universities, and private firms. And incubators focus on new business development and grant for other public or private research entities. Private non-profit organizations, including private research institutes, non-profit hospitals, private foundations, professional or technical societies, academic and industrial consortia, and trade associations also conduct their own R&D activities. So it's an ongoing process. If you see here, the total R&D expenditure country-wise for business, higher education, government, and private, the leading ones are who? China, Japan, Korea. This is 2017 figures, not so latest, but this shows us how and which way the R&D expenditure for the top 8 R&D performing countries are being happening. I think there's a tremendous growth. In recent time, there is a growing recognition of the importance of collaborative research and development networks for successful innovation, including joint ventures, licensing, and second sourcing agreements, research association, government-sponsored joint research program, and value-added network for technical and scientific interchange and informal networks. So please see the figure of the Global Technology Collaboration Network. The structure of such network actually influences the flow of information. You can see from 1995 to 2000 years, and other resources through the network. So the size and density of the network can thus influence the innovation of organizations that are embedded in the network. Firms in close geographic proximity are more likely to collaborate and exchange knowledge. Example is Silicon Valley of United States. Semiconductor firms are all concentrated there. Manhattan Multimedia Cluster in New York, or Modena, Italy's knitwear district. These are some of the classic examples of clustering. So technology cluster often emerge because they are often economies of having buyers, suppliers, and conglomerators, complementers located in close proximity. Proximity facilitates knowledge transfer. The exchange of complex and tacit knowledge typically require frequent and close interactions. Proximity influences a firm's willingness to exchange knowledge and firm's ability to develop common ways of understanding and articulating knowledge. Knowledge is held to a large extent in people, and people tend to be reluctantly mobile. As a result, knowledge tends to be regional localized. For example, Annalie Saxenian found that engineers in Silicon Valley were more loyal to their craft than to any particular company. But they were also very likely to stay in the region even if they change jobs. Successful firms create a valuable labor pool that is attractive to new firms that desire similar labor skills. So the increase in employment and tax revenue in the region can lead to improvement in infrastructure such as road and utilities, schools, and other markets that service the population. The benefit firms reap by clustering together in close proximity are known as agglomeration economies. The downside to a geographical clustering are that competition between the firms may reduce their pricing power and increase the possibility of competitors gaining access to each other's proprietary knowledge. Clustering can also lead to traffic congestions, high housing costs, and higher concentration of pollution. So, studies have shown that the degree to which innovation activities are geographically clustered depends on things such as nature of technology, industry characteristics, the cultural context of technology, example, population density or labor or customers, infrastructure development, or national differences in the way technology development is funded or protected. Then we talk about technological spillover. It also occurs when the benefit from the research activities of one firm or nation or other entity spill over to other firms or nation or other entities. The rate of which technology spillovers will occur is a function of the strength of the protection mechanism and the nature of underlying knowledge. It is found that R&D spending of other firms and universities in its geographic region influence a firm's patenting activities and profits. The study concluded that sometimes even price do work in innovation and to achieve innovation. Having found that monetary prizes has resulted in large effect in the number of contest entries and on the quality of the invention being submitted. Prizes have long been used to induce solutions to national challenges. So between 16th and 19th centuries, prizes yielded the vaccine inoculation, the lifeboat, a method of calculating longitude at sea, new food preservation techniques, and more. But the late 19th century, prizes had largely been replaced by two other mechanisms, patenting and grants. However, those tools have limitations. Patents lead to innovations only in areas where inventions have commercially potential. And given the structure of government funding, grants are awarded to a narrow range of eligible recipients. There is numerous examples how prizes are put to let the innovation comes out in various countries funded by universities and government. Now let us understand the types and patterns of innovation. A 115-year-old company that sells consumer goods in India, most notably household appliances. For years, it succeeded by bringing technologies developed overseas, such as refrigeration, to the wealthiest segment of the population. It is an interesting, developed, and very interesting case study of this company that invented the small refrigerator at a cheap price and made a success in the market and was given several awards. This company reinvented its business. This company utilized a set of common innovation steps that are described in the research field as innovators' method. The steps that help leaders to establish or in established company turn innovative ideas into innovation. In this case, the company's team decided to first try to understand the problem deeply. As the team member traveled all over India and talked to the target segment customers, and they realized that women managing households in rural India faced many challenges. And one was that they could not store food. So they had to buy and prepare the food on everyday basis. So something that was time consuming and also expensive. Moreover, most potential customers had had intermittent power, and that would rule out a standard refrigerator. So the small refrigerator was invented to meet the demand of this large potential market segment by the company. And every company who do this invention, generally they're trying to meet the unmet needs of the society. And that's what Steve Jobs did to bring the smartphone. So there is no single agreed upon taxonomy used to describe different kinds of technological innovations. The performance improved rate of technology through time is referred to as a trajectory, and the trajectory usually takes on an S-curve pattern. The diffusion pattern of technology also conform to an S-curve pattern. So when we talk about types of innovation, there are 4 dimensions to it. Most commonly used to categorize innovations are product versus process innovation, radical versus incremental, competence enhancing versus competence destroying, and architectural versus components. It is important to emphasize that these dimensions are not independent and do not offer straightforward system for categorizing innovation in a precise and consistent manner. New product innovation and process innovation often occur in tandem. When not in tandem, product innovation can be preceded by process innovation and vice versa. And finally, product innovation for one firm may simultaneously be a process innovation for another. For example, UPS, United Parcel Service, DHL, Xingfeng, SF of China. There are many such examples. So a number of criteria have been posted to distinguish between radical and incremental innovation. And most of these criteria turns on the degree of newness and differentness of the innovation and the amount of risk associated with the innovation. So innovation is often risky because of uncertainty in both technology, example with the technology performance as expected, and customers' requirement, what features will customer ultimately value. So an innovation is considered to be competence enhancing if it builds on the firm's existing knowledge base. Example are many, like Apple iPhone, iPhone 12, iPhone SE, iPhone X, etc. And competency destroying if it does not build on existing competencies or render them absolute. The handheld calculator replacement of the slide rule is a good example of competence destroying innovation. So an innovation is considered to be component innovation or modular innovation if it entails changes to one or more component but does not significantly affect the overall configuration of the system. Such an incorporation of gel-filled material, for example. This example is competence destroying innovation. So an innovation is considered to be component innovation or modular information if it entails changes to one or more components but does not significantly affect the overall configuration, as I mentioned. So including cushioning in a bicycle seat that does not require any change in the rest of the bicycle architecture. So an architectural innovation entails changing the overall design of the system or the way that component interacts. So architectural innovations are often considered more radical and competing, destroying. For example, having all the engine on the SpaceX rocket be the same, reduce the amount of tooling and the number of processes required, resulting in what Musk called huge cost saving. So this change was an architectural change that both substituted a new component, the Merlin engines, and changed the overall design by making it more modular. So innovators are extremely adventurous in their purchasing behavior, comfortable with the high degree of complexities and uncertainties, and generally have access to substantial financial resources and are always well integrated in a particular social system, but they bring new ideas to the social system. So early adopters are respected and well integrated members of their social system and have the greatest potential for opinion leaderships. They typically are willing to invest substantial efforts in researching their adoption decisions. Early adapters are often excellent missionaries for new products and processes. Members of early majority adopt innovations slightly before the average number of a social system. These adapters are more risk averse than the earlier two categories and must be convinced that the product is popular and safe before adoptions. They are typically not opinion leaders, but they interact frequently with their peers. The late majority approach innovation with a skeptical air and often scarce resources and may not adopt the innovation until they feel pressure from their peers. Then we talk about laggards. Laggards may base their decision primarily upon past experience rather than influence from the social network, and they possess almost no opinion leaderships. So technological change is cyclical. Each cycle begins with a rapid improvement. This initial phase is followed by a period of diminishing returns to efforts made to improve the technology. The third and final phase occurs when the technology is replaced by new technology, which we often refer as technological discontinuity. So a new technological discontinuity or a period of creative destruction can result in significant changes in the competitive structure of an industry, including the creation of new leaders and new losers. So technology cycles have always been divided into phases based on the degree of uncertainty experienced in each phase. Great innovators like Utterback and Abernethy propose the following: fluid phase. Phase one is characterized by considerable uncertainty about both the technology and its markets. Firms are not yet sure what factors or product feature will get the best response from the market. So they experiment to get feedback and make changes accordingly. The production of solar, wind, and hydrogen, for example. Phase two, dominant design, is characterized by the adoption of a dominant design based on consciousness about desired product features. Phase three, specific phase, is characterized by the concentration of firms' efforts on process innovation. And in this phase, firms capitalize on the now stable architecture for the technology by focusing their innovation efforts on the products, materials, and manufacturing processes that are specific to the dominant design. And examples are production of oil and coal. So, as per Anderson and Tushman, great innovators build on the Utterback and Abernethy model in their study of the US micro mini computer, cement, and glass industries through several cycles of technological change. They characterize the phase of technology cycle as follows. First, phase one, era of ferment, which is characterized by turbulence and uncertainty and begin with the introduction of new technological discontinuity. In this phase, the new technology displaces the incumbent technology. But there is a considerable design competition as firms experiment with different forms of technology. In phase two, dominant design, a dominant design will emerge as long as new technological discontinuity doesn't arrive too soon. So the key insight is that the dominant design was never in the same form as the original discontinuity and also is never on the leading edge of the technology. So as per Anderson and Tushman, they found that a dominant design always rose to command the majority of market share unless the next discontinuity arrived too early. The dominant design was never in the same form as the original discontinuity, but was also not on the leading edge of technology. It bundled the features that would seize and meet the needs of the majority of market. During the era of incremental change, firms often cease to invest in learning about alternative designs and instead focus on developing competencies related to dominant design. So let us now understand the standards, battles, modality, and the platform competition. A classic case is Netflix, a leader in streaming service in the world, also faces challenges in the ever-changing market and need to continue to innovate its business model, strategies, to set themselves ahead of the competition. And it's always challenging for them because new entrants coming in, and they have to continue upgrade themselves to be the market leaders and to be innovative company. So why do industries experience pressure to select a dominant design? The answer is clear. It's market forces, increasing returns to adoption, the importance of complementary products, and government regulation and regulatory actions is the two primary sources of pressure to select a dominant design. Why do some technologies become dominant design and others do not? The answer is generally one design is selected over another because the total value it offers to the customers. And standalone value plus network externality value is greater than the total value offered by other technologies. So let's explore and consider the multiple dimensions of value that will shape which technology design rise to dominance. Let's understand why dominant designs are selected. Why do market police around the single dominant design rather than supporting a variety of technological options? There are many factors that drive a market police around a dominant design. These factors often result in self-reinforcing process that continues to increase a technology dominance even if it's inferior to competing technologies. This factor includes learning effects, the improvement rate of technology. Greater use of technology leads to greater knowledge accumulation, and greater knowledge accumulation enables the improvement of technology. So the network externalities that results when there is increasing returns to adoption. Example, a technology become more valuable to customers as more and more customers adapt to the technology. So complementary product creation often occurs at a faster rate as adoption becomes more widespread. Learning effects evidence shows that the more a technology is used, the more developed, effective, and efficient it becomes. So learning effect has been demonstrated in a wide variety of industries, including automobile, ships, semiconductors, pharmaceuticals, and even heart surgery techniques. So the learning curves represents the cumulative impact of learning on production cost and productivity. Organizational learning scholars typically model the learning curve as a function of cumulative output. Performance increases or decreases with the number of units of production. So organizations learn at very different rates. Firms learn at different rates because the level of prior learning and absorptive capacity differ. Learning rates also differ with the nature of the task and the firm's strategy. Absorptive capacity refers to phenomenon whereby an individual or firms learn, they also create the future ability to learn. For example, the development of new technology requires experimentation. Experience and experimentation helps build a knowledge base that allows the individual or firms to identify what alternatives are most likely to be successful in the future. Firms that do not invest in technology development may not develop the absorptive capacity needed to recognize or develop new technologies in the future. So absorptive technology and capacity also has effect at the industry level. As the number of firms learning about technology increases and or the number of firms creating complementary technologies increases, the more effective and efficient the original technology will become. So when we talk about network externalities, this is positive consumptions externalities affect the adoption of a dominant design because a user's benefits from using good increases as the installed base increases. Example, railroad, telecommunication, communities of practice, computer platform. For example, many people choose a computer that uses Windows operating system and an Intel microprocessors because the Windows platform has the largest installed base, thus maximizing the number of people with which the user's files will be compatible. So network externalities arise when compatibility, example, exchanging computer files and availability of complementary goods, like example, movies for a VCR and film for cameras are important, and when investment in training are high. So quality is one of the examples. So for example, as Windows installed base increases, developers become more likely to expand their efforts on developing product compatible with Windows rather than the Mac. Thus, a virtuous circle, at least from Microsoft perspective, begins. An increasing installed base attracts complementary goods and developers. The availability of complementary goods increases the installed base and so on. Very interesting situation. So path dependency often characterize technology trajectories with increasing return to adoption. So path dependency means that small historical events may have a large effect on the form of technology adopted as the dominant design. For example, early entrants and their technology may become so entrenched that subsequent superior technologies may be unable to gain a foothold in the market. Sponsorship by a large, powerful firm can also help technology gain a controlling share of the market, locking out alternative and potentially superior technologies. Coalitions have proven to be effective strategy for firms trying to effect the selection of dominant design. For example, the opening case described the coalition backing Sony's Blu-ray DVD standard versus Toshiba HD DVD standard. So when Time Warner defected from the HD DVD coalition to the Blu-ray coalitions, it triggered a chain reaction that led to several of the major retailers, example, Walmart, Netflix, Best Buy, saying that they would exclusively stock Blu-ray, dealing a fatal blow to HD DVD standards. Then comes the government regulations. In addition to the market forces that encourage the adoption of a dominant design, sometimes government regulations play a role in the selection of dominant design. Governments are more likely to intervene where there is a societal or consumer welfare benefits to having compatible technologies. This has often based the case of the utilities, telecommunication, television industries, for example. So in 1953, the FCC approved the National Television System Committee color standard in television broadcasting to ensure that individuals with monochrome television sets would be able to receive the color television program broadcasted by network. In 1998, European Union adopted a single wireless telephone standard to avoid the proliferation of incompatible standards and to facilitate exchange both within and across national borders. The most superior product do not necessarily win when all the above factors are at work. The result can be natural monopoly, though some alternatives may survive in niche market and winner take all markets. So the winning firm enjoys high returns and well positioned to affect the development trajectory of the technology, thereby furthering enhancing its dominant position in the industry. So losing firms not only have to play catch up after they adapt the dominant design, they also lose the capital learning and brand equity invested in their original technology. So the influence of dominant design can be far-reaching. Dominant design affect knowledge accumulation after the adoptions, primarily because firms have a tendency to build on their existing knowledge base rather than build new ones. This means that a dominant design will influence the technological discontinuity that will replace it. Are winners take all market goods for consumers? Let's ask this question. This is a complex question made more complicated by traditional economies emphasize on the advantage of competitive markets. So now let's talk about the Microsoft, the rise of Microsoft. What makes this question complex is an issue increasing returns. Of course, the antitrust suit brought against Microsoft is a good example. To answer this question, the benefit accrued by customers when a larger portion of the market adopts the same technology, S-curve, must be compared with the corresponding monopoly, which we say exponentially increasing cost, higher price, less product variety, flatter technology, improved trajectory, and so on. So government regulation also have a role to play. And we need to understand that sometimes the consumer welfare benefits of having a single dominant design prompts government organization to intervene and impose a standard. And that has been everywhere. So why dominant designs are selected? Increasing returns indicates that technology, trajectory are characterized by path dependency. And a dominant design can have far-reaching influence. It shapes future technology inquiry in the area. And winners take all markets can have very different competitive dynamics than other markets. And technologically superior products do not always win. So we have to be very clear how this works. So when we talk about a multiple dimension of value, so if technological superior products don't always win, what determines which technology and which firms win? The company that wins usually can effectively manage the multiple dimension that comprises total customer value. Customer compare the value of two or more competing technologies based on each technology standalone and network externalities value. Standalone value means buyer utility map to help managers determine what aspect of new technology will be valued by potential customers. Example, the function it enables the customer to perform, its aesthetic qualities, its ease of use. They recommend considering 6 utility levers and the 6 stages of buyer experience cycle: purchase, delivery, use, supplement, maintenance, and disposal. In order to fully understand a new technology standalone value to customer, of course, each benefit has to be considered in the light of cost. For example, a new online ordering system alters the value proposition offered to the consumer by simplifying purchase processes. Example, change in single cell, while the Toyota Prius hybrid electric vehicle offered customers greater benefits in the use and maintenance stage of the buyer's experience cycle. Example, multiple cells. So network externalities value is a function of the size of the installed base and the availability of complementary goods. So the value of Windows operating system, for example, is due to availability and ability of the system to make it easy for consumers to use computer standalone value, plus 2 sources of network externality value. Its large installed base, which translate into large number of computers with which the users can easily interact, and the ability of compatible software developed for Windows as its installed base increases. An incumbent technology may thwart the adoption of new technological superior technology because the total value standalone plus network externalities it offers is higher. Example, NEXT. In order for a new technology to compete on only standalone value, that value must exceed the total value offered by the incumbent technology, or the new technology must be compatible with the incumbent's installed base and complementary goods. So the value of Windows operating system, for example, is due to the ability of the system to make it easy for consumers to use computer standalone value, plus 2 sources of network externality value. Its large installed base, which translate into large number of computers with which the users can easily interact, and the availability of compatible software developed by Windows as the installed base increases. So coming back to our next part, all the above has been based on consumer reliance on objective information. But consumer choice is also affected by subjective information. Example, perception of value. So each value component has a corresponding perceived or anticipated value component that can be considerably different from the actual value. So this is an excellent time to talk about recent standard battles. Example, Apple iOS system versus Google Android, and how you perceive the current and future value of the installed base and complements. So firms can take advantage of consumers' reliance on perception by creating a large mind share through heavy advertising, heavy advertisement. That makes the installed base appear larger than it actually is, and or make the availability of complementary goods appear greater they actually are. For example, Sega and Nintendo's battle for dominance of 16-bit video game console market is a great example. So another tactics firm used to capitalize on consumer reliance on perception is pre-advertising. Pre-advertising market vaporware, a product that is not yet on the market and may not even exist, in an attempt to persuade customers and consumers to wait for the new product instead of buying a competitor's product that is already available. And here again, the game console industry is a good example. Now consider the rate at which value increases with the size of installed base, and how large of an installed base is necessarily before most of the network externality benefits are achieved. So these graphs are usually characterized by threshold level of adoption, in which the externalities benefits are very low and above which the benefit increase significantly. So this type of graph shifts up when the base value and the level value of technology is greater. So the question comes, what is the competitive landscape like when customers attain their desired level of network externalities benefits at low level of market share? The customers has a greater region of indifference between the two technologies. A good example here are again the video game consoles, and firms in this market may compete very successfully in multiple domains. So the modality and platform competition, the modularity is when the product can be separated and recombined. So the product system become more modular by expanding the range of compatible components, or by uncoupling components that were previously integrated. So in markets where products are complex or complement drive the value of the product system, firms might use modality to enable different firms to focus on different complements or other parts of the ecosystem. For example, enabling third-party developers to make application for iPhone greatly expanded the range of application and increased the value of iPhone ecosystem. So there are many platforms. Ecosystem is when some core part of the product, example, streaming services, mediate the relationship between a wide range of other components or complement, like music titles and perceived end users. So platform boundaries may well define or amorphous changing. So complements providers depend on each other's success while simultaneously competing. So complements are often so specialized with the platform or have exclusivity agreement, creating stickier or longer term relationship compared to simple market transactions that occur between suppliers and resellers. So tightly integrated products and purely modular products offer different advantage and disadvantage. So platform strikes a compromise by ending cooperation and compatibility between different players, where also enables some co-specialized or castration of the ecosystem. So when we talk about a platform ecosystem, we are talking about pure modalities, platforms, pure integration. So when we talk about pure modality, is a combination take place in the market and no co-specialization. Choices and reconfigurability Competition incentivizes firms to increase quality and decrease prices. When we're talking about platforms, companies not owned but curated. And competition still incentivizes. When we talk about pure integration, we are talking about combination of predetermined by firms with no reconfiguration and captive supply and no competition. So we also have to understand the timing of entry is very important. Everybody know this failure of Uber Air. What happened? Uber Air was trying to go into the market, especially from the United States point of view, making collaboration with various aircraft manufacturers who are using battery-operated aircraft designs. But the timing was wrong. They did not have a lot of things in place, including licensing. Their business model, which they were using for the car hailing, was not so suitable. And they could not develop the technological development in the field of air transportation, infrastructure for air traffic control, and network of landing pads at different locations. So they struggled a lot, and finally, they failed. So there's some examples, even of very established companies, they try to do their best to enter to a huge market, but the timing was wrong. But they will come back. We believe that there is a huge market because the city congestion in large cities around the world is increasing, and affluent businessmen and elite class will like to have an alternative, and there's a need for such services. So early entry can be crucial to the successful adoption of new technologies. This is especially true when the technology benefits from increasing returns to adoption. But the same characteristics that make early entry desirable can often make the technology unattractive. For example, there may only be a few users early on, and the firm may have to develop or support the development of needed complementary products if it is new to the world of innovation. So entrants are often divided in three categories: first movers, early followers, and late entrants. The research studying when it is best to enter is inconclusive. There are a number of factors that influence how timing of entry affects firms' survival and profit, including market-related factors such as availability of complementary goods, development of enabling technologies, degree of customer certainty, and firm-specific factors such as capital resources, prior experience, and reputation. So, when we talk about first mover advantage include the ability to build brand loyalty and technological leaderships, and the ability to assess resources that may become scarce. If the industry is characterized by the increasing returns to more advantages that a firm may benefit from a learning about the technology and customer requirement before their competitors do, and network externalities. Brand loyalty and technological leaderships can result from early entry, and customers may consider the first firm to enter a new technological domain to be the technological leader. This reputation for technological leadership can enhance a company's ability to shape customers' expectation. Example, features, pricing, and can be sustained if the technology is difficult to imitate or is protected by patent or copyright. So, exploiting buyers' switching cost can enable early movers to keep their customers even if a later entrants offer a superior technology. And these switching costs include cost of the product and cost associated with learning now to use the product. So the increasing return advantage are self-reinforcing and can be gained in an industry that experiences pressure to adapt a dominant design. And this advantage often culminate in the technology entrenchment as a dominant design. Intel invention of the first microprocessor in 1971 and Microsoft introduction of BASICs in 75 are good example for this effect. So if you see here, the great think tank contrasted the experience of first movers and early followers, found that first movers have higher failure rates, 47%, and lower market share than the early followers, which is 10 to 30%. So first movers earn greater revenues, but also have higher cost, with the result that they earn significantly lower profits over time. So the cost incurred by first movers that are non-existent or greatly reduced for followers include expenditure on research and development, development of supply and distribution channels, development of enabling technologies, and development of complementary goods and services, and product trials to determine what features consumers actually prefer. Later entrants can also adapt newer and more efficient production process. Research and development expenses for the first movers are higher than those for late entrants because their exploration costs are higher. They have to pay for research that did not result in commercially viable products. They bear the cost of developing production processes and complementary goods. Later entrants can leverage without the usual very large upfront investment made by the first mover. So undeveloped supply and distribution channel often characterize the situation faced by first movers. A new to the world technology often doesn't have ready-made suppliers or distributors. The first mover then must either develop and produce its own supplies and distribution service or assist in the development of suppliers and developers market. Example is Deka. Development of iBot. Wheelchair required the firm to invent new ball bearings and develop the machine to produce the bearings. Immature enabling technologies and complements also often characterize the situation faced by first mover. For example, PDA. Developers were reliant on the development of batteries and modems by other firms. Similarly, when complementary products are not readily available, the adoption rate of technology is slowed. And this effect has occurred in the development of hydrogen fuel cell powered vehicles. The development of this alternate technology has been slowed because there's no ready way to refuel cars using new technologies. So uncertainty regarding customers' requirement can cause first mover to incur great expense to learn what customers want. Market research may have little value when customers do not yet know how they will use the product and are willing to pay for and refine product accordingly. For example, Kodak was the first to introduce 8mm video camera in the late 80s, but withdrew from the market due to poor response from customers. As you know, the story does not end well for Kodak. By the year and early 1990s, customers became more comfortable with the technology and Sony successful entering the market, leaving Kodak to play catch up or not re-enter at all. This may be a case where Kodak would have been better off by spending on customer education efforts. So why does the belief in first mover advantage persist? First, because there has been successful first movers, and second, because the market has in many cases misidentified the first mover Example, P&G was not the first mover in the disposable diaper market, but because they were market leaders, many think they were P&G entered 30 years back after chokes. So factor which influence optimal timing of entry, the question comes, how does a firm decide whether to pioneer a technology category or wait until others do? The answer depends on several factors, including customer certainty and margin of improvement offered by the new technology, the state of enabling technologies and complementary goods, and the threat of competitive entry, the degree to which the industry exhibits increasing returns and the firm resources. So how certain are customers' preference? More certain customer preferences favor early entry. Both companies and consumers learn which feature create the most value as they gain experience with the product. They are expecting such as drug development, targeting certain diseases or symptoms where the customer requirements are clear from the outset. So features initially thought to be important may be, example, graphics and sound were initially thought to be needed to establish an e-commerce presence, and features initially thought to be unnecessary, not as important, turn out to be important. So to customer, example, Sony PlayStation 2 console included the ability to play music, CD, and DVDs that Sony thought was of a secondary importance to the functionality supporting gaming and playing. As it turned out, some consumer purchased console for the CD and DVD functions and purchased only a few games. This was a bad news for Sony because consoles are sold at or near cost to increase adoption, and profits are derived from game selling. So how much margin of improvement does the innovation provide over previous technologies is the question. And the answer is, the higher the improvement, the more likely a firm is going to be successful in entering early product, because the product will more rapidly gain customer confidence. So do complementary goods influence the value of the innovation, and are they sufficient available? The answer is, if the firm innovation requires complementary goods that are not available in the market, and the firm is unable to develop those complements successfully, early entry is unlikely. So there are interesting questions which we have to understand. How high is the threat of competition and competitive entry on entry barriers and the profit potential of the technology? Example, high margins. Actually, both play a role in assessing the threat of competitive entry. High entry barriers enable a firm to delay entry. But if a firm's delay entry when entry barriers are low and the value of technology is high, they are likely to face a very competitive situation when they do enter. So there are many questions which we need to understand when we are talking about these factors which influence the timing of entry. So we have to also think whether and when to enter. What should be the strategy? What should we do? What should we prepare? And so on. So there should be some strategies to improve timing options. So up to this point, we have assumed that entry timing is a choice that a firm makes. This is only true when the firm is capable of producing the technology at any point in the relevant time frame. Example, the firm has or can quickly acquire the necessary core capabilities, and or the firm has a fast cycle development process using strategic alliance, cross-functional new product teams, parallel development, etc., etc. That is a perfect situation. So assessing the firm position and defining its strategic direction is very important. Choosing innovation project in which to invest, including both quantitative and qualitative valuation technique, is very important. Deciding whether and how the firm will collaborate on development activities, choosing a collaboration mode and choosing and monitoring partner is also very important. And finally, a crafting a strategy for protecting or diffusing technological innovation through such matters as patent, trademark, copyright, and trade secrets. So let us understand now how the organization's strategic decisions are taken. We all know about Tesla. Tesla was founded in 2003 by Martin Eberhard, an entrepreneur. So how the Tesla has been moving forward and doing a very strategic decisions to be market leaders in the battery operated cars. They created rapidly a loyal fan base, and they quickly captured the global market. So there are many examples where we see how formulating a company's technology innovation strategy help the firm to assess its current position, its strength, weakness, core competencies, sources of sustainable competitive advantage, and define its strategic direction. How should the value proposition evolve over time and resource needed? So a company's strategic intent should be ambitious, create a gap between existing resources and capabilities, and those need to achieve its intent. So strategic intent develops begin with an evaluation of the firm's capabilities and ideally ends in a plan that cohesively leverages all of the firm resources to create sustainable competitive advantage. And that's where the Porter's 5 forces model comes into the play. External analysis is frequently conducted by applying Porter's 5, degree of rivalry, the likelihood of new firms entering the industry, the power of buyers and suppliers, and availability of substitutes, or stakeholders analysis. Degree of rivalry is an industry, is a function how many firms there are and their relative size. Many firms of equal size lead to greater rivalry, but so can a few large competitors that engage in price wars. How different each time and each firm or its product is from the others. Example, the lack of significant difference between KAISER and its competitors led to vigorous price competition. Product demand, height of exit barriers, threat to potential entrants is high when the industry is attractive and entry barriers are low, and vice versa. A good example discussed with is smartphone market. In one hand, the industry is likely to be attractive because of high growth potential and visibility, but the presence of powerful competitors such as Nokia, Ericsson may act as deterrent. It is important to emphasize to evaluate whether the industry is attractive before turning to barriers. If the entry and the industry is unattractive, barriers become unimportant. So bargaining power of supplier is a function of the number of suppliers, product differentiation, amount purchased, switching cost, and the ability of buyers and suppliers to vertically integrate, for example. So Intel has suppliers' power over its customers' power because its product have very high brand image. There's a product differentiation. And because other software and hardware has been optimized for Intel processor, so switching cost. Similarly, Walmart has power over the suppliers because of the high volume of its purchases. So bargaining power of buyers, like bargaining power of suppliers, is also function of the number of buyers, level of product differentiation among purchased, switching costs, and whether the buyer or supplier can effectively threaten to vertically integrate it. And threat of substitutes is a function of the number of potential substitutes, those closeness in functionality and relative price. For example, bus and train travel are typically not close substitutes for plane travel because their lower costs are offset by greater traveling time. So it is important to emphasize that a substitute is not the same as a competitor. If there is ambiguity about whether a product is a substitute or a competitor that have not defined their industry. So porters have acknowledged a sixth force, the availability, quality, and the price of complements. So stakeholders here, they're very important for analyzing this. So stakeholder analysis begins with the identification of all parties impacted by the firm, what their interests and claims are, what resources they contribute to the firm, and stakeholders include, but are not limited to, stockholders, employees, customers, suppliers, lenders, the local community, governments, and rivals. An analysis focusing on how stakeholders will impact firms' preference. Refer to a strategic stakeholder analysis. With the normative stakeholder analysis, emphasize issues the firm ought to attend due to ethical and moral implications. So internal analysis begin with the assessment of firm strength and weakness in each part of the company value chain. And the value chain activities are often organized according to whether they are primary, example, inbound, outbound logistic operation, marketing, sales, and services, or secondary, procurement, human resource management, and infrastructure activities. So the firm then identifies which strengths have the potential to be a source of sustainable competitive advantage. It's rare, valuable, durable, and intimable. So the path dependent, example, first mover advantage, socially complex resources, particularly effective group, or causing ambiguity, example, talent, resources that are valuable can provide the basis of sustainable competitive advantage because they're difficult to intimidate and to imitate. So we have to be very clear how it works. And when we are talking using big data to guide innovation, we have to identify core competency and capability. The term competency and capability are usually interchangeable in the text because they are semantically equivalent, though some researchers have attempted to distinguish between them. And our focus is on emphasizing what makes a competency a core competency, and or demonstrating how core competencies or capabilities are achieved by integrating a variety or more basics of rudimentary capabilities. So, for example, Sony core competency is miniaturization, is the result of firm's ability to harmonize the use of multiple technologies, including liquid crystal displays, semiconductors, etc. So Sony is then able to utilize this competency in multiple markets, including television, radio, personal digital assistants, and so on. So we have to be clear how and which way we are going to develop this. So the core competencies as the root of a tree that sustain many branches and therefore argue that the organization structure and incentive must encourage cooperation and exchange of resources across strategic business units. They offer following tests to identify a firm core competencies. So it's complementary, a significant source of competitive differentiation. Does it provide unique signature to the organization? Does it make significant contribution to the value a customer perceive in the end product? For example, we talk about Sony skills in miniaturization have an immediate impact on the utility customers reap from the portable products. So there are many questions which we need to understand how we develop these core competencies. And is the competency hard for competitors to imitate? In general, competencies that arise from the complex harmonization of multiple technologies must be difficult to imitate because these competencies usually take years to build and or path developed. It has been argued that strategic business units should be expected to bid for people because individuals should be considered corporate assets and that can be redeployed across the organization. So when we are talking about the right of rigidness and rigidities is faced by firms when they focus on current capabilities and do not develop new ones. Sometimes the very thing that a firm excels at can enslave it, making it firm rigid and overall committed to inappropriate skills and resources. For example, a firm emphasizes on specific discipline that is central to its core competency can make the firm less attractive to individuals from other disciplines. In addition, the rewards of engaging in activities related to organization core competencies can discourage employees from pursuing more exploratory activities. So firms that will develop knowledge sets along with a particular trajectory may find it difficult to assimilate or utilize knowledge that appears unrelated to that trajectory, that by limiting the firm's opportunity. So when we're talking about dynamic capabilities, enables a firm to quickly reorganize and reconfigure its organization structure and routine in response to new opportunities and not related to specific product and technology. So we were talking about dynamic capabilities. So this enables Kony as a company that invested heavily in its dynamic capabilities by heavily investing in research in areas likely to provide scientific breakthrough, building pilot plants, managing its relationship with other firms as an integrative and flexibility system of capabilities that extended the boundaries of the firms. So the strategic intent here is a firm's strategic intent is an ambitious long-term goal, 10 to 20 years in the future, that requires all levels of the organization to build on, stretch the firm existing core competencies. A firm's strategic intent takes the focus away from current markets and meet current customers' requirement so that the organization can focus on future markets and customers' requirements, articulating the company's strategic intent that enables the company to focus its development efforts and choose the investment necessary to develop strategic technologies and incorporate them into a company's new product. Canon, obsession with overtaking Xerox in copiers. Apple mission of ensuring that every individual had a personal computer, and Yahoo goal of becoming the world's largest internet shopping mall are all examples of strategic intent. So there are red ocean and the blue ocean. So when we are talking about these two different scenarios, we have to understand, if you go to the red ocean strategy, are you ready to compete in existing market space? Are you there to beat the competition? Are you ready to exploit existing demand? Can you make the value cost trade-off? Can you align the whole system of firm's activities with its strategic choice of differentiation or low price? Then you enter the red ocean strategy. If you go to the blue ocean strategy, you should be able to create uncontested market space. But there are some other challenges. You can still make the competition irrelevant, but competitors will follow the suit very quickly. Create and capture new demand you can do, break the value cost trade-off, and align the whole system of a firm activities in pursuit of differentiation and low cost. So managers can challenge the industry strategic logic by asking following 4 questions. Which of the factors that the industry takes for granted should be eliminated? Which factor should be reduced well before the industry standards should be addressed? Which factor should be raised well above the industry standard should be addressed? Which factor should be created that the industry has never offered should also be looked into very carefully. So many companies follow the Kaplan-Norton balance scorecard, which makes the case for including measures of performance that go beyond the balance sheet, because the measures used strongly influence how the firms pursue its strategic objective. They argue that in addition to the financial perspective, a firm's performance should be elevated from the customer, internal, innovation, and learning perspective, financial perspective, the customer perspective, internal perspective. So the innovation and learning perspective consider goals such as accelerate and improve new product development or improved employee skills. Measures include the percentage of sale from products developed within last 5 years, average length of the new product, development cycle, employee training targets, and so on. So let us now go to our case studies. We are going to study some Harvard Business Review cases. Bang Olufsen, which is one of the very interesting company, make a very interesting products. They always design and invent something unique, some different, which customers continue to buy. Even they have many speakers at home, but when they see the attractive speakers, a new innovative product, the design and the way it is, fitting into their home for decoration, they tend to buy it. So this is one of the very good example of innovative company. Now, let us see a case study of Tata Nano. This is one of the failed business model. Now, when we were talking about Bang Olufsen, we were talking about what was their strength. Actually, 75% of the idea of this Bang Olufsen product comes from designers, 25% from business to fill holes in the catalog. Several ideas will be explored in parallel in early stage of the process. Rough prototypes might be constructed and compared by the company. An interactive prototyping process continues with 2 or 3 ideas until they begin to think they have arrived at what they wanted. So an idea with substance, which is particularly B&O that others would not likely have produced, that has long life potential. So once an idea with substance have been arrived at, it continues through an interactive process that emphasizes an interchange between thesis, the idea, and antithesis, the counter ideas or problem with the idea, which will at some point result in synthesis. So models and prototypes become increasingly detailed and complete towards the end of the process. About 6 months before production, the specification is frozen of the product by this company, more or less, and the production process is set up. So the overall process is design driven, not designed for manufacturing. And designers rule. There is no market research. Lewis or another designer working on a design takes the customer into account by thinking about how customers live and keep changing their living standards. So this is what their strength was. So what happened to Tata Nano? They developed a very smart car, small car. The majority of new products failed actually because of the lack of preparation, and they had the same problem. The first mistake they made was location. The manufacturing plant, which had to be reallocated, there was a delay in the production of the cars, which ultimately led to the late deliveries of the car themselves. This lowered the enthusiasm of customers. They were not enthusiastic anymore, and competitors have a chance to criticize Nano. Secondly, since the company targeted middle-income customers, mainly tier 2 or tier 3 cities, the distribution channels needed were not well established. So they couldn't reach out to the customer whom they wanted. And the second flaw was the product fell short of claim. They were supposed to provide a reasonable quality, low cost, safe alternative to two-wheelers customers to move to the car. So they tried, but the problem is that there's some accident happened, some fire happened in the car, and people start to lose the safety, and they couldn't believe that this car have a long durability. The product went into limbo, and then all the problems started. So they tried to change many times their business model, putting in front cheapest car, discourage a segment of customer from buying it. But further, they couldn't make the positioning very clear. They could not make customer believe them. They said that they had a new product, and the product was revolutionary, but there was not enough market for it. The Tata Nano had huge market potential, which was evident from the early booking response when the car website was launched and it crashed because of the heavy traffic. So they thought that this hype will bring their car into the market and very successful, but they couldn't do that. So what happened is, if Tata could manage this early hype and had raised consumer expectation, and which they further delays have given a deteriorated situation further for them, and to address the flaw, which is related to positioning, a sales and marketing public relation team should have worked in tandem, eliminate the misconception of the Nano being a cheap car, clearly identify a target segment, could not generate enough sales to allow Tata Motors to break even, given the low price of the Nano. So whatever they must have done, it couldn't help them. So some product fails because of the wrong strategy, without the not understanding the market, without understanding the customers, how they would take advantage of, and product safety or product quality itself. So when we see most of the new products fail because of lack of preparation, unplanned logistics, lack of channel partners, lack of understanding of target market, wrong business models, flawed design, features not exciting, no clear strategies on advertising and promotions, lack of positioning in the market, a revolutionary, innovative product, but no big market. So last but not the least, the flaw in timing. The timing is the most important factor as well. So same situation happened with BlackBerry. Both the pace of technology evolution and market evolution was extremely fast after 2000, And BlackBerry responded with a new product in 2008, including the Bold and the Storm. And 2009 launched BlackBerry App World to take Apple App Store. The Storm was a disaster. Organization theorists have characterized change based on the impact the change has on an industry and its firm. They talk about industries going for a long period with incremental changes and then hit with a breakthrough. And this breakthrough are either competence enhancing or competence destroying. So the destroying variety is usually unleashed by new entrants and invariably destroys the competency that have been built by incumbents. In contrast, the competent enhanced kind of change is initiated by the incumbents' entail action and improving price, performance, and trade-offs, or substituting technologies that are more efficient than older generation. So competence destroying changes, plain paper copying machines, vacuum tubes to transistor, piston to jet engines, records to compact disc, open heart oxygen furnace to thermal cracking to catalytic cracking, sheet glass to float glass process are example. Similar competency enhancing change, LSI, VLSI, semiconductor, jets to turbofans, catalyst cracking to catalytic reforming, resistive metal discomposition. So the iPhone was a competitive enhancing change. Smartphone already existed and Apple improved them. And BlackBerry eventually developed a reasonably competitive touchscreen product, but the App Store, followed by Android, was competence destroying change because it created a new platform that Apple controlled. So the App Store connected customers to app developers. The role those digital platforms play in today's economy is phenomenal. So platforms have always existed. Malls connect shoppers and retail stores. Travel agents connected travelers with airlines, and newspaper connect subscribers with advertisements. So in today's digital world, platforms play a much greater role, and they can achieve near monopoly position. And firms left outside the platform may struggle to find customers. So these are one of the important things which we need to understand when we are talking about the failures. Let us see now the success. The success, one of the very interesting company in China. In May 2, 2019, it was an important day for Xing Jing, the founder of So Young International Incorporated, So Young. He has visited the United States and has asked to take part in the NASDAQ stock market opening bell ringing ceremony. Jin stood on the stock market stage with his team members and other guests in front of the center position as the bell rang, and people cheered and applauded the opening day of trading. And so the So Young logo was broadcasted live to the world. So Young was an internet-based service that connected consumers seeking cosmetic surgery with information about treatment options, practitioners who provided treatments, and clients who had undergone cosmetic procedures. So he entered in this business with a very smart move, because most consumers saw cosmetic surgery as profiteering industry, although some institutions complained about how hard it was to make a living. The main reason of this contrast in views was the high cost of gaining new clients. As Jin noted, the most difficult problem in this industry is consumer decision making. The ultimate competition is users' experience. So Jin described So Young vision to bring beauty and health to everyone. And he said, our vision is to become the most trusted technology company in the broader healthcare industry and transform the market in the way we have been doing in the medical aesthetic sector in China. So he referred to his company's strategy as the So Young pattern to achieve his vision for his company's future. Jin had to identify the right market segment and decide whether So Young should develop its own business model. So he innovated his business model. He used the best effective pest analysis, political factors, economic factors, social factors, technological factors, and So Young developed the best business model canvas, like value proposition, customer segmentation, channel access, customer relationship, key activities, key resources, key partners, cost structures, and revenue streams. So Young business model uses content, social networking, and e-commerce to meet the need of both clients and service provider on its internet platform. So Young platform increases in size and volume, and the company drives China medical aesthetic market with rational and substantial development. So Young developed the new 4C principle: context, content, community, and connection. So in conclusion, why is so hard to build and maintain the capacity to innovate? The reason is not simply a failure to execute, but a failure to articulate an innovation strategy that align innovation efforts with overall business strategy. Without such strategies, company will have a hard time weighing the trade-offs of various practices, such as crowdsourcing, customer correlation, co-creation, and so may end up with grab bag of approaches. They're also trouble designing a coherent, innovative system that fits their competitive needs over time, and may be tempted to ape someone else's system, and they will find too difficult to align different parts of organization and share priorities. So while we're coming to the end, I wish to say Corning, the French glass company, a leader in glass and material science, has found an innovative strategy must address how innovation will create value for potential customers, how the company will capture a share of that value, and what type of innovation to pursue. So critics tend to discount routine innovation, but it leverages a company's existing technical capabilities and business model and extols disruptive innovation. So a company's unique competitive circumstances should dictate the innovation portfolio it pursues. So without such strategy, companies will have a hard time weighing the trade-offs of various practices, such as crowdsourcing or customer co-creation, and may end up in the wrong direction. So we have to understand this, and we have to see how we should strategize our company and go forward. So some of the common causes of failure could be changing organization priorities, changing project objectives, inadequate poor communications, opportunities and risks were not defined, inexperienced project managers, task dependency, and so on. So we have to be very clear that how So Young made success was because he found its own niche in the cosmetic surgery market, expand its user group through its steady development, establish its own business model. So Young turned website feature a beauty diaries into a business, right business opportunities in crash. He in Cash So Young resolved the market pain points, assess its current development status based on the new 4 principles, as I said, to suggest how So Young can optimize its business model to build ecological environment in the cosmetic surgery market, content, community, contest, and connections. Thank you so much. And now it's time for us to have a Q&A. So the floor is open. Welcome, guys. Thank you so much for patient hearing.
Okay, thank you for Dr. Warren.